I have just started and left myself on mute, but that's okay. Hey guys, I'm so happy you're here tonight. I know that this is not my normal time to do my podcast, but I had to change it because I have a special guest for us tonight. We are welcoming the one, the only, Miss Larissa Antonioni, the author of A Realm of Lies and Power. She is the owner and operator of FictionAlly LLC, and she's also the co-host of The Fiction Affair. So I am super excited to get her on the stage with us. So I am just going to pull her on in now. And if you're watching this in the replay, make sure you check the comment section and then also check in the description, and I will go back in and add all of her social media and tags and all that kind of stuff after we finish, because I'm a bad girl and forgot to do that this morning. So I will do it when we get done. So let me bring her on with no further ado. Welcome, Larissa. Hello. How are you doing?
You?
I am super excited to have you here. I don't know. Again, bad girl. I'm not sure of your process when you're doing your podcast, if you do interviews or whatnot. But what we do here is I have around 26 questions. I always have 25, 26. Don't know if we'll get to all of them or not. Hopefully we will. But if you are ready, I am going to start. Most of the questions are about your world building and your wonderful book, A Realm of Lies and Power. So here is question number 1. What inspired the creation of A Realm of Lies and Power? And was there a particular moment or idea that sparked the story?
Yeah, great question. I think for so many writers and authors, it starts with one scene that you just cannot get out of your head. It
Right.
marinates in there for a while, and then ultimately it has to come out on the page somehow, or your brain will explode. So I have a really romantic and intimate scene between my two characters, Renwick and Davina.
Mhm.
And it's where my story started. So I had this idea that they were in a bath because she's dealt with some trauma and some really difficult things in her life. And he is just providing this care and comfort that she has desperately needed for so long. And I was like, okay, well, now I have to write an entire book to get to this scene that has been in my head forever.
Yes.
And ultimately, this book, this story, while it is a fantasy romance, it's also just about self-discovery and grief and just the people that we need in our lives to accept who we are after dealing with really difficult things. And I just needed to get that on a page.
So what inspired the creation? This has to do with the world building of the arcane realm, and were there specific myths or stories that influenced you about when you were creating those?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fascinated and love Greek mythology. I love all of the different deities and that they do different things for specific elements and parts of the world. So I for sure pulled on some of that. I have a goddess of life and death. I have one for weather, and I needed a world that they would fit in. So
Right.
I had to think about all of these different myths, these different ideas, and what would come of the world and how has it progressed over time
Okay.
too, because our faiths shift and they change.
Mhm.
And I think it really started too with just this idea that our world that we currently live in, the real
Right.
world, is not perfect. So all of the issues and struggles that I see on a day to day, I just amplified them in this
Mhm.
fantasy world to make them even more extreme.
Awesome. So the novel intertwines themes, like you were saying, of magic, betrayal, and romance. How did you balance those elements so it was a cohesive narrative?
It was really hard. So my first draft, of course, every writer and author should know that your first drafts suck.
Yeah.
It's normal. They should suck. Their only job is to exist. So in the first probably 2 to 3 drafts, I had zero balance. It was the first 3 chapters were all world building. They were all fantasy and zero romance. And then the later half of my book was all romance and zero fantasy. So really it came down to revision, editing, and my favorite writing tool is autocrit. So autocrit
Love
has
autocrat.
oh my gosh, they're fantastic. So autocrit is kind of like AI, but they don't train their AI algorithm for anybody who gets like, oh my God, I can't with AI because I understand.
Yeah.
But autocrit does not train, but they are pulling ideas from your story and checking your consistency throughout
Right.
the program. So
That's what
it
I
would
love.
tell me, yeah, it tells you like this particular chapter has none of your subplot in it. And then you can go back and fix it. It's a beta reader before you give it to real life beta readers.
Yep. I agree. Renwick and Davinia have like complex backstories. So how did you develop their characters? And did they evolve differently than you initially planned? Like from that first bath scene to where they ended up, are they different than you planned?
Oh yeah. I had a whole plot and character arc for them, but they took the reins as my characters always do. They don't do what I want them to do. They just decide that no, they never do. They are real people. And then they decide that they are running the show. So initially when I was writing Davina, there was no backstory of
Right.
betrayal from family members.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I'm writing and I'm like, well, I did not know that that was going to happen, but here we are now, and I have to change my entire trajectory to now match this. And with Renwick in particular, I had to really think about his backstory because when I wrote him initially, he didn't really have one. He was a kind of two-dimensional character. Hi, cool gamer too. He was a two-dimensional character that did not have a lot of depth. So I had to think about why he was the way he was in the story. Why did he act the way he did? And it turns out that he had just as much trauma, if not more, than Davina, which is why he was such a good match for her in the end.
I really enjoyed Davinia. I will be honest, when I was reading it, her name was Davina. Davinia.
It is Davina.
I know, but I kept saying Davinia when I was first reading it, but now Davina. I know right now. I'm saying it right now. But Davina's quote, this one stuck with me. I didn't fear the darkness. I was the darkness. To me, that is just about the most powerful quote in the book. So what does that reveal about her characters for that, without giving too much away for people who haven't read the book, who should go buy the book right now and read it? What does that say about her? Please.
It is at this point in the story showing readers that there is a whole lot more to her than we have known up until this point. We see a little bit of her struggles. We see a little bit of, it's in the summary, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything.
Okay.
The blurb talks about how she's harboring this really secret magic, but we don't know what it is. And she doesn't know what it is.
Right.
Kind of until then. So it reveals a lot about her. And more than that, and I didn't realize I was doing this as I was writing it, but I think it speaks a lot to humanity because we are all capable of incredible darkness and incredible light. And I think this was kind of like a self-actualization moment for Davina, realizing that she is not just sitting in the darkness. She doesn't have to be scared of it. because
Right.
it's part of her.
Right. I liked that about her character. Her character arc was her coming to the point where she was comfortable sitting with herself, I guess is the way to put it. It just seemed like she knew who she was, when the art, really am. The world building in the arcane realm is very intricate, like we talked about. When you were creating that, because it is such a detailed fantasy world, were there any scenes or chapters that were particularly challenging, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah. So building any world is difficult, and I'm not even talking about just fantasy. Anytime you write fiction, you have to think about where your characters are. It could be a contemporary romance in a small town, and you have to
Exactly.
keep track of all these things. So I think one of the most difficult scenes to write was it's so hard to not spoil things. So there is a scene where there is a kind of like, let's reference the baths in Rome, for example. And it kind of resembles this a little bit. It's these really steaming natural spring baths that are supposed to connect you to your faith in this world. And I am writing this and I'm like, this is the most difficult thing for me to describe sensory wise. I
Mhm.
have no idea what these baths in Rome smell like. I have no idea what they would feel like when you step in them. So I really had to just get creative and start doing research. And then, of course, I pulled so much from things like Pinterest for visual ideas. And
Mhm.
then I would just info dump, basically, describe all of the different components. And then I just tried to parse them out through the scene. And I think
Mhm.
it worked. And I was also very, very lucky to have a writers club in my area that was able to provide me with feedback that was like, Larissa, I need more here because I don't know if it's dark. I don't know if it's light out. I don't
Mhm.
know if there are bubbles in these baths. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, clearly I need to add more. So,
Yeah.
anyone who is a writer, you need a critique group or a critique partner because
Yeah.
they will really help you with those difficult
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah. How did you so that how you ensured your world building and your character development? Was it through critique groups and beta readers?
Yeah, beta
Yeah.
readers for sure. My critique group that I have in person. My beta readers, I think I had about 30 of them. And my
Mhm.
general rule of thumb for anyone who is going through this process now or will go through this process
Mhm.
is if more than one person points out an issue, that's probably when you should consider it
Mhm.
and revamp or
Okay.
adjust based on that issue. If it's just
Yeah.
one person out of a stack of 30, it's probably an issue
No.
for that one person.
Yeah.
So weigh the pros and cons of what you're going to change. And
Yeah.
then in addition to that, also just always ask yourself, is this still true to the story that I'm telling? And there were some things from beta readers that I didn't change because I'm like, no, this is a part of
And
who
yeah,
this
this is
character is.
mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm not going to change that because it changes the entire vision. Versus some things, I'm like, okay, 6 of you have pointed this out.
Mhm.
Clearly, it needs to be fixed.
That's cool. As far as characters go, speaking of characters, Draxus adds a unique dynamic. What was the inspiration behind his character? Our little wyvern.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so for anyone who's watching this who doesn't know, Draxus is a wyvern, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
So he is my snarky, sassy side character.
Mhm.
And he is sarcastic. He speaks in his own language that only Renwick can speak with him.
Mhm.
And the inspiration, I think, really for him and how he came about was that there are so many books out there right now, like Fourth Wing, Onyx Storm, that have dragons. And
Yeah.
I never see wyverns ever. I think they're
Mhm.
so cool. They walk with their wings, like they have points on their elbows. So how they walk is so unique. And I'm like, I don't want a dragon. I want a wyvern. I want
Mhm.
something different. And I want him to be able to talk because, quite honestly, I want to be able to talk to my animals. So how could I not
Yes,
put that in my
absolutely.
story? Um, and also, I just really think he provides this emotional levity and this humor that we need through the story to prevent it from being too dark. Because it is a dark
Right.
romantasy, but I don't want us to fall into the pits of despair. So
Right.
I wanted someone or some being that was comedic enough to give us these breaks and a little bit of laughter throughout the journey.
Okay. So the title itself of your book, A Realm of Lies and Power, suggests, themes of deception and power. And how do you really feel? It's like trust and betrayal are so central to the plot. So, how did you kind of explore the concepts through your narrative? How did you go about really bringing about the theme and manifesting their journey?
A lot of it
Sorry.
shows up through political intrigue. So I have this High Lord in this story who is pretty conniving, villainous, and he is essentially the reason that Davina and Renwick have to work together through this story. And that was a lot of it. We don't know that much about him in book
Right.
one. We just know that he is not good. He has made some promises to some people that if he fulfills these promises, excuse me, it's going to be pure chaos and
Mhm.
not good for anyone. But on a deeper level, it is not just about the lies that the government tells us or the lies that our loved ones tell us. It is about the lies that we tell ourselves, the dishonesties that we have to eventually face and truly look at to be the
Mhm.
best person that we can be. So, as
Right.
much as there was like this political intrigue, and Renwick has these moments where he's not totally honest with Davina, it's about her trust in herself and her ability to grow as a person when she faces these really uncomfortable truths.
So also we talked earlier, especially when we're talking about Davina, about the theme of hidden magic. So that's really prevalent throughout the book. So what kind of drew you to that concept, and how does that reflect Davinia's journey? I know we touched on it a little bit, but what are your really in-depth thoughts on the hidden magic that's with throughout the book?
So, on an external level, and just what it means in terms of like plot and story, is that she is keeping this magic hidden because it's incredibly powerful. And she doesn't want anyone to know about it because this
Mhm.
magic would be feared. So, that on the surface level is how it impacts the plot. But on a deeper level for character
Yeah.
development, it is also just about how we are so much stronger than we think we are, and she is so much stronger than she thinks
Mhm.
she is.
Mhm.
And it is so apparent through how I've written the story that she just needs somebody to believe in her as much as encourage her to believe in herself. That way she
Mhm.
can really show this power and be comfortable enough in this reality that she is someone who can change the world if she just lets herself. And I think we hide as humans so much of those parts of ourselves, the
Mhm.
parts of ourselves that truly give us
Yeah.
strength.
Mhm.
And I wanted to demonstrate that through her.
That's awesome. I loved that character. The book has received really positive reviews for its immersive storytelling. How has reader feedback influenced your perspective of the story? And has it kind of changed the trajectory by any chance?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much has changed my trajectory for like book two. So this is not a standalone book. I mean, currently it is because it's the only one out. But I'm working on the sequel for this story. And I knew that Draxus was going to be liked. Okay. He is hilarious. But I didn't realize how much people were actually going to love him. So I didn't have that many scenes in book two planned with him in it. And now it's completely shifted. He is a big chunk of book two, and we are going to get so much more of his lore and his backstory because readers adore him and love him. And I was not expecting that. Like that
I know.
completely shifted.
Mhm.
I thought people were coming for the romance, the spice, and the tension. Okay. No, they come for the wyvern. They want
Yes.
Draxus.
Mhm.
So that has definitely altered what is going to
Love
happen too.
him. I love him. The ending kind of leaves readers eager for more. So, can you hint what's next in the Chronicles?
Yeah. So in book one, we only get to see one realm. We only see the arcane realm, but
Mhm.
there are several realms that there's an opportunity to explore. So we will see another one in book two. We are going to explore another realm, and they're going to get some very intriguing allies in book two.
Ooh,
I'm excited.
that sounds so exciting. Fame reader. All right, moving on. I could talk about this book all night, and I could, but
You're making me blush.
I'm gonna ask you some other questions. I'm fangirling at the moment. Everybody, give me a moment.
Thank you so much.
All right. So these questions, because for those of you who don't know, besides being an author, she's an incredible editor, plot developer, and I wanted to ask some questions about that aspect of your life. So, as an author and an editor, how do you separate your roles when you're writing? How do you just write that first rough, horrible draft and not stop and edit it?
Timers are my best friend. So for anyone who really favors the delete button, and you have an amazing host of this podcast right now who does writing sprints. So if you have a problem with the delete button, you have
Mhm.
an excellent resource right here.
Right.
Um, but seriously, doing the Pomodoro where you like write 25 minutes on and then take a 5-minute break is great because your
Yeah.
goal is just to get words on the page. And
Mhm.
if I don't set myself timers, the delete button, the backspace, like the word would probably be worn off my keyboard.
Yes.
Um, and the truth
Same.
is, you're going to have to edit your book anyways. So if you're worried about perfection in that first book, you're not going to achieve it and you're going to have to edit regardless. So
Right.
you might as well just keep writing
Just keep
because you're
writing.
going to read your book 30 times before you publish.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, I already have one. This is funny. You'll get a kick out of this. This baby was already released out into the world, and I'm doing a relaunch, and I've got 10,000 words before it's considered a second edition that I'm going back through this thing with. So I understand. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question. Also on writing and editing, how has your experience in developmental editing influenced your storytelling techniques?
I love developmental editing because it gives me so much more perspective into how writers and readers think. And it also tells me a lot about my own writing where I can improve. So I'll see something and I'll comment on it as a developmental editor for someone. And I'll be like, you know what? I need to keep that in mind for my next draft because I also do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So my editor brain and my writing brain, very different beasts. And one of the other things that has changed so much and is just so encouraging is realizing that we all start out at the same place. We all have drafts that should never be seen by anyone but yourself and a developmental editor or your
Yes,
beta readers.
yes.
Don't publish your first draft.
Never.
So it provides some levity and some perspective shifts that we are really all in this together. And if I had not done editing, I probably would have always assumed that my first draft is worse than anybody else's. And now I know that it's not true. We all start at the same pace.
Okay, this kind of falls back on that. Are there common mistakes you notice in manuscripts you edit that writers should be aware of? Like, what's your top three?
Oh, top three. Okay. So probably interiority. So really getting into that deep POV of your character. So a lot of this comes from like being too plot focused instead of character driven. Not
Okay.
that there cannot be plot driven books, they certainly exist. And for a lot of readers, that's fine. But
Mhm.
for most readers, you want to connect with the characters. You want to see yourself in the books that you're reading. And if you
Right.
don't have that inner monologue and interiority, then it's not there.
Mhm.
I have also noticed the delete button needs to be removed. Yeah, I should just like take
We
it off.
agree, Cheryl. We agree.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so yeah, interiority. And then honestly, so this is more of a line editing thing, and I don't do line edits. I'm just a developmental editor and a proofreader,
Mm.
but I think I comment on this for people because it can take away from the narrative. And that is how much people use words other than said or asked. Not that there isn't some room for that, because if they're whispering, sure, tell us that they whisper. But it should only be like a quarter of your manuscript that is these other words for what they sound like when they're talking. This does not, let me just say, this does not include an action tag. Action tags are a different thing. So if they're
Right.
grabbing a mug of coffee, that's different. So that's probably my number two. And if I really had to pick a third one, it is just making sure that you're fulfilling your promises to your reader. If you promise them a romance, make sure that you are delivering their romantic plot line all the way through your book. And if you are promising them horror, make sure it's horror and not thriller. So a lot of it is just continuity for genres. And I guess that's probably my last really like big thing that I notice as an editor.
Okay. Now, this is just personal, and I have to ask you this. Your dog's name is Yennefer. Is that a nod to the Witcher series? And how has other fantasy media influenced your work?
Oh my gosh, yes, it is. She is named after Yennefer from The Witcher. My husband and I watched the show and have also played the video game. I will be honest, I have not read or listened to the books, and they are on my list because I love Geralt. But um so much media has influenced me, and it is not all just books. I love the Vampire Diaries, the TV show, growing up in like high school, I think is when it came out for me. And I will still go back and refer to a lot of my male favorite main characters because they inspire me so much. And then on top of that, video games inspire me all the time. Tiny Tina's Wonderland is like a D&D Borderlands mix, and it's the entire reason that there is a wyvern in my story.
Oh, fun. Fun. So, what books or authors have significantly impacted your writing journey?
Carissa Broadbent is great. She wrote Serpent and Wings of the Night, and her prose is inspiring. Her ability to just tell you who a character is right away within like one sentence or one quote is also incredibly inspiring, and I aspire, honestly, to write like her one day.
My favorite, and nobody ever seems to know, I love Willa Carter. Carter. She wrote My Antonia, and it's a classic. And I love that book. And I have no idea why I brought that up right now. So we'll just
That's fine. I wrote it down.
fog brain. Brain fog. Sorry, guys. All right, we're coming up on our last questions, and they are about your writing journey and influences. You have been writing since childhood, and I wanted to know, how has your writing style evolved over the years?
So I used to not write romance. That's probably the biggest thing that has changed. I never had romantic plot lines, which I don't understand why now, because I don't think I could write a book without a romantic plot line at this point. I shouldn't say I don't know why that changed. It was because I read Twilight in middle school. So
Okay.
sorry, anyone who is a Twilight hater. It just completely opened me up to a genre that I never would have read. But honestly, I grew up not being able to read very well or write very well. So I was very blessed with a patient, amazing mom who got hooked on phonics for me when I was little, and that's how I learned to read. And I don't know if I was necessarily struggling with dyslexia, but I always read my words backwards. So she had to really teach me to slow down. So I'm not necessarily a fast reader or writer, but I just want to encourage anyone who's a parent, anyone who has youth in their lives, just be patient with them because you never know how much you will change their lives, and maybe they will be an author or a editor one day because somebody was patient enough to teach them through the things that they struggled with.
I love that. What was your most surprising challenges during your publishing process as a debut author?
Of course, getting that thick skin, because not everybody is going to like everything about your book. It is just natural. I kind of think getting a negative message or a negative bit of feedback is actually what almost makes you like, it's a rite of passage. It makes you a real author. Like you're included in the club then, okay?
Yeah.
So I think that is really hard. But as far as the act of publishing, this is going to be the most stupid thing. But I did not know when you create an EPUB, not only do you have to upload your cover to wherever you're publishing, so Amazon, Ingram Spark, you also have to embed your cover in the EPUB.
Yeah.
And if you don't, your readers might not get your cover. So just a little side note, I did not, luckily, have it happen. I caught it in time.
Oh,
But if I had caught it a day later, I would have had readers without a cover.
I don't have it right here with me. It's buried, but I have a checklist that Sarah made me a long time ago. It's from all of her Publish and Thrive students, I think, have it. And that's one of the things that's on the checklist.
Yeah.
So you are not alone. You are not alone.
That was not on there. So everyone, if you haven't done, Publish and Thrive, it might be worth it just for that checklist because she's probably including things that nobody else has.
Yeah. So can you share any ritual or routines that have helped you stay focused and inspired while you've been writing?
So prior to being a mom, I had a very consistent routine. Let me just say, a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old toddler changes things a little bit.
Yes, it does.
Yes. So I used to take like 2 hours out of my night, every night, would sit exactly where you guys are seeing me right now, and I would write here. I would light my candle, I'd have a warm cup of tea, and usually I'd pull writing prompts. Now I just write within the margins of life. I am, taking every moment that I can and writing 100 words and then taking a break with my kid and doing it again the next time I have a chance. Yeah. So as much as I would love to say, I have my ideal writing routine. I have what I want to do. Mm-hmm. That's not my reality every day.
Yeah. So you are also a co-host of the Fiction Affair. So can you tell us more about the platform and its mission?
Yeah, so you can find us pretty much anywhere. We are on Substack, Spotify, and Apple. We do want to end up on YouTube Music at some point, but I'll be honest, I've been really struggling with the logistics of that, so it is on my to-do list. But really, our mission is just to encourage new and aspiring authors to keep writing because it can be so daunting to get through that first page. And there's just so much information out there that it can be hard to listen to all of the different voices telling you what to do. So Dunya, my co-host, and I will often say, do what works for you. Take what we say that works and leave whatever doesn't. You are not going to offend us if the advice that we are giving you doesn't work. You can just say like, nope, sorry guys, this doesn't work for me and throw it in the trash. We don't care because every writer is so different. And we just want our podcast to be a space where people are welcomed, they are encouraged, and hopefully you learn a little bit along the way.
Awesome. All right. We are finally to our last question. Are there any upcoming projects or events that you are particularly excited about and would like to share?
Well, I already mentioned I'm working on book 2. So I'll be honest with everyone, book 1 is left on a cliffy. So I'm sorry if you do not like cliffhangers. I tried to rewrite it so that it wasn't a cliffhanger. I rewrote my ending 6 times, but the cliffhanger needed to be there. It didn't feel right without it.
Yeah.
So I am working on book 2 very diligently. I think I'm about a quarter of the way through right now ish. I'd have to
Wow.
actually look at my plot
Ish.
to know. But my characters are taking me on a journey. So who the heck knows at this point?
Fun.
But my eventual release date, if all goes according to plan, will be this year. Or at the very latest, it will be like February 2026.
Okay.
At the latest. That's my hope, you guys. But events, I have an in-person event. If anybody is from Wisconsin, if anybody is regional to the Wisconsin area, Oshkosh, Wisconsin is hosting both a writers conference. So if you are a writer and want to learn more tools, please come. It is May 2nd through the 3rd. It's a Friday and Saturday. I am there as a speaker talking about writing bravely in the face of imposter syndrome. And then I am also there as an author selling my books, tables, so I'll have a table there, and I'm selling some merch as well. So you can get character art that is not currently available in the book. So if you are regional, it's a good incentive to come.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this has been fun. This was a lot of fun. I knew it was going to be, but I just appreciate you coming on and I don't know what happened. I was doing so well.
That's okay.
And then the allergy dragon just got me. I think it was like because I said that I liked the wyvern or how I think maybe that's what it was. I don't know. So the allergy dragon came for me. But y'all, thank you so much to Larissa for being here today. I will get all of her social media information from her, get her to get it to me in an email, and I will add that to our description. Please like, share, and subscribe. And again, if you have not read A Realm of Lies and Power, please go buy the book, guys. You will not regret the purchase. It is an amazing book with amazing reviews. So please purchase the book. It's incredible. So now it's time for me to say what I always say. And if you're one of my whiskeys, you know what I'm about to say. But I'm going to say it anyway. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm a really awesome group of people's double shot of whiskey. And I am so happy and so proud that you come here and hang out with us and that you find us just right. We love you. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.